Hello and welcome to another episode on Maritime Radar. Fishing is a major activity in Nigeria, with men and women deriving their livelihoods from the trade, but the prevalent incidents of illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing in Nigeria's waters have raised concerns, as this has constituted a huge threat to the livelihoods in local fishing communities. The assertion is that the IUU fishing activities are perpetrated on Nigerian waters by foreigners, with an estimated fishing figure of over $70 million lost yearly to these criminal activities. This perhaps does not exonerate Nigerians, as there's been report of arrest made by Nigerian Navy. How the Nigerian Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy will harness the huge potential in the fishing and aquaculture subsector and the huge loss that should drive Nigeria's economy are some of the issues that will be on the front burner on today's show. I'm Nneoma Obi-Asualo. As Nigeria continues its battle against illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing activities allegedly perpetrated by foreign fishermen who are exploiting West African waters, Nigeria continues to lose millions of dollars yearly, as estimated by the House of Representatives. This includes loss of license fees, revenue from taxation, and the value that could have accrued from legitimate fishing to local vessels. Aside revenue loss, illegal fishing has created massive economic hardship for Nigerians and other nations in the West and Central African region, as resources that ought to create jobs and wealth for its citizens are illegally taken away. Vessels from China, the European Union, are said to be notable for illegally exploiting Nigerian waters. Nigeria's coastal waters contain diverse species of fish which contribute to food and economic security of its people. This includes lobsters, prawns, sea cucumbers, amongst others. The small-scale fishing activities also contribute 80% of locally produced fish and support the livelihoods of about 24 million Nigerians. To close the huge gap through which revenue and jobs are lost in Nigeria, experts has proposed that Nigeria must enact the Maritime Zones Bill and review relevant maritime laws that have some punitive clauses for offenders. Before we get further into today's lineup on the program, let's find out the latest in maritime news.
The Nigerian Ports Authority (NPA) and the Nigerian Customs Service (NCS) have pledged their commitment to work together, deepen trade facilitation, and drive exports as part of measures that will support the Nigerian government's economic diversification agenda. This pledge was made during the Controller General of Customs, Bashir Adeniyi's visit to NPA's headquarters in Lagos. In his remarks, the Managing Director of NPA, Mohammed Bello Koko, said there is a need to streamline export desks to make facilitation of cargoes on board vessels seamless, as he frowned at the situation where export processing terminals report to the export desk at the seaports. He also applauded the Customs CG's effort for the tremendous increase in percentage in quantity of export cargo seen, but insisted that the issue of multiple export desks needs to be addressed. The NPA boss urged the Customs CG to include the authority as part of agencies of government that would benefit from the proceeds of auctioning overtime cargoes at the port, as huge funds were spent in moving the overtime cargoes from the seaports to the Ikorodu terminal.
The issues of congestion at the port is because we need to make the ports more efficient. We need to be able to clear cargo as quickly as possible. So we have discussed the issue of 24-hour port operations, where we need custom officers to going forward to be working on shift. That way you can have cargo clearing and cargo discharge and other things into the night 24 hours. But for them to do that, it means you need the shipping lines, you also need the terminal operators and security, and everybody needs to actually be on their toes and work 24 hours.
In his response, the Customs CG stated that the visit to the NPA is to renew friendship, deepen existing relationship, and buying into the vision of the NPA to ensure port efficiency and competitiveness, which would help the Customs Service facilitate trade, increase revenue generation, and regain cargoes lost to ports in neighboring countries.
If you deploy scanners to examine goods rather than subject them to 100% examination, that's one way to make them, faster and more efficient. We are building our risk management. We are expanding fast track. We are going to get into AEO in the first quarter of this year, so that more of our companies will not, have their containers subjected to examination in the port. We are launching a time release study for us to actually determine the time and the costs it takes to clear goods in our ports.
The collaboration is set to improve Nigeria's export earnings, decongest the ports, and aid the facilitation of export cargoes on board ocean-going vessels. A recent report by the International Transport Workers Federation, ITF, showed an alarming 11% rise in the number of crew abandonment cases in 2023 compared to the previous year. The ITF reported a total of 132 abandonments, 13 more than 2022. The Maritime Labour Convention 2006 stipulates that a ship is considered abandoned if the ship owner fails to cover the cost of a seafarer's repatriation, fails to provide necessary maintenance and support, or severs ties with them, including not paying contractual wages for at least 2 months. The ITF report revealed that unpaid wages from 129 cases exceeded $12.1 million, with 1,676 seafarers from abandoned vessels reaching out to the ITF. The ITF has so far secured more than $10.9 million in owed wages from 60 of the abandoned vessels. ITF Inspectorate Coordinator Steve Trousdale added that as cases continue to be resolved and more seafarers come forward, the final amount is expected to exceed $12.1 million. It is a consequence of an industry where the seafarer can be a throwaway commodity. Seafarers and their families pay the ultimate price for the greed and non-compliance of ship owners, enjoying the inhuman consequences of a system that compromises their well-being, dignity, and basic human rights. The International Chamber of Shipping has rated DR Congo as the worst flag state in the world. In a shipping industry flag states performance report released this week, DR Congo chalked up 11 negative indicators across a total of 18 to sit at the bottom of the table. ICS Secretary General Guy Platin said Comoros had the second largest number of negative indicators with 10 out of 18. Along with Comoros, the ICS noted Togo and Algeria as continuing to record a large number of negative indicators, highlighting the need to encourage ship owners and operators to examine whether a flag state has sufficient substance before using. Bermuda, the Cayman Islands, Denmark, Greece, Hong Kong, Japan, Liberia, Malta, the Marshall Islands, Norway, Portugal, Singapore, and the United Kingdom, many of the largest flags, all had positive indicators across all 18 performance categories. Among smaller flag states, the ICS noted that Costa Rica, Egypt, Mexico, and Thailand all showed improvement in the number of positive indicators. The information in this year's highly anticipated ICS flag state performance table continues to be positive, with notable improvements in several areas including government attendance at IMO meetings. However, the table also shows that unfortunately, a number of flag states continue to record large amounts of negative performance indicators, which must be addressed for the benefit of the entire shipping industry.
If you're just joining us, this is Maritime Radar. Nigeria has a vast coastline and its waters filled with enormous marine resources, including hydrocarbons and various species of fishes. Despite these abundant natural resources, the benefits are not accruing to its economy because of these criminal activities of those who are engaged in illegal fishing. In this chat with Oluseyi Adejuyigbe, a maritime lawyer and a managing partner, Chaniel Legal Practitioners, she shares on the illegal unreported and unregulated fishing, which is the bane of Nigeria's blue economy. Stay with us. Happy New Year, and it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I wish you the same.
Let's start this conversation having a background understanding or knowing the potential of Nigeria's ocean resources and having an understanding of what illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing is.
Thank you very much. Nigeria has a vast coastal landscape or size. We're about approximately 853 kilometers. That's how long our coastline is. And from that, and we have enormous resources, marine resources. We've got fishes, we've got catfish, we've got sardines, we've got mackerel fish, and we have a lot of other marine resources apart from the fishes. And then we have a lot of hydrocarbons. Of course, that's why we're very, of course, rich in oil and all of that. So Nigeria has a vast and an enormous marine resource. And talking about IUU fishing, that means illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. Of course, because of this vast coastline that Nigeria has, many people are attracted to it because there are enormous resources to tap from it. So illegal fishing simply means fishing that is contrary to the laws and regulations of Nigeria, and unreported fishing means or simply refers to fishing underreported amount of catch or non-reports of the catch. And then unregulated, that refers to the areas that have not been specifically set out for conservation or management. So that's basically what IUU fishing is about, and it's a big thing. It's an organized crime. Even the IMO refers to it as a big thing, because a lot of the resources of a nation is tapped, and by the illegality of the activities, what should accrue to the coastal states doesn't get to them.
Having this background understanding of the potential of our ocean resources, so what do you think the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy should be doing now to ensure that these ocean resources is preserved?
Yes, thank you very much for that. As it is now in Nigeria, fishing and all those other activities are under the Ministry of Fisheries.
Okay.
So even in the extant law, the minister refers to the minister in charge of the Fisheries Ministry. So it would be nice for, even if the Blue Economy Ministry cannot take over the fisheries aspect right now, because that might be kind of a bit tedious, but there should be a collaboration.
Okay.
They should reach out to the Ministry of Fisheries and find out a way of, okay, you have the knowledge about the fisheries, we are the marine people, we know we have these resources. How can we collaborate and make sure that all the resources that we should be able to tap? And then one thing is this, by international law, every state, Nigeria, let me just break it down to Nigeria, all the resources within our exclusive economic zone belong to us.
Okay.
And it's very heartwarming to know that recently EEZ was increased from 200 nautical miles to 350 nautical miles, because Nigeria made an application to the United Nations Commission on the continental shelf. So that means we now have so much more resources to really tap into for our own benefit and for the benefit of Nigerians.
Looking at the illegal fishing, what exactly is Nigeria losing by this criminal activity?
Thank you very much. There was a time that the House of Reps, they kind of conducted like an inquiry or an investigation, because of what they have to do. And it was said that approximately, give or take about $70 million.
Okay.
That's what Nigeria loses annually.
Oh,
To
and
this.
that is also arguable because some maritime experts, maybe like Oluseyi, is even thinking that is about $400 to $600 million yearly.
But you know the way it is because we don't have the data. So all of these things are just kind of like approximate. But Nigeria does lose a lot, an enormous amount of money to these nefarious activities of IUU fishing.
So what is the consequence of this loss yearly to maritime development?
Yeah. Like you did say, if all the fish caught within our waters are actually reported, and these fishing activities are done according to our laws, for anyone to be able to carry out fishing activities in Nigeria, they have to be licensed to fish, and then maybe some for shrimping or whatever. And the government loses revenue because taxation, they're taxed, and then all the money they have to pay, the licensing fees and all of that. If all of these fees if they accrue to the coffers of the government, definitely, like you said, these can be used even to help the Nigerian Navy, get more patrol boats, and the Deep Blue Economy Project, they will benefit from this also, surveillance, machinery, equipment, and all of that. And definitely, even to help the local fisher women or fishermen, because then you can now maybe extend loans to them to buy their small fishing boats and the nets and the fishing gear. So all of these are things that the money that we're losing can be used to do, and so much more.
So then it's important to curb this menace. But we are due for a break. We will know how to curb the menace of illegal fishing. Join us again. If you're just joining us, this is Maritime Radio, and I still have with me Oluseyi Adejuyigbe. Before we went on that break, you were talking about the consequences of IUU.
Yeah.
So let's take it a bit further to know how we can curb the menace, how we can curb it. Because it's not about just knowing what the challenges is.
Yeah.
We should also provide solutions. And how can IUU aid economic diversification?
Thank you very much. To curb IUU fishing, it's like I said, it's a global thing. It's not only restricted to Nigeria, and Nigeria is doing well because the Nigerian Navy, even though it's difficult to patrol that vast coastline that we have, it's very, very expensive. So the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, there's an international treaty, the first of its kind, and it's binding. And it's to prevent, deter, and eliminate IUU fishing. And that's the Port State Measures Agreement. And Nigeria, I'm so happy that Nigeria has ratified that treaty. And, because it's difficult to really, it's expensive and difficult to really go after these illegal entities, in the vast ocean. But something can be done at the port level. So there are measures that have been put in place by this treaty that the port states can follow. When you suspect that a vessel coming to your port has engaged in IUU fishing, then there's some reporting mechanisms, and then it's like blacklisting them. So even you can detain them, or even if they have to leave your port, then they can go to another port because everybody will know, oh, this vessel has been involved in IUU fishing. So that's one way of curbing. And I must say that the Nigerian Navy is doing that. I mean, within the resources they have, they're trying, because recently they arrested a trawler and 13 crew members, and they were handed over to the members of the Ministry of Fisheries in Bayelsa State, because they were fishing where the canoes and artisanal fishermen should fish. That is less than 5 nautical miles of Nigeria's waters. So we're trying, but it's just that there is more that needs to be done, and we need to collaborate. Like the Deep Blue Sea project. From what we did, because we tackled piracy head on, and even with the legislation, and then we've been able to bring piracy to the minimum in the Gulf of Guinea. And I think also, in addition to all these things, the Sea Fisheries Act of 1992 has to be we have to rejig that law, because that's about the only law that governs fishing in Nigeria. And 1992 law, we just need to amend that law to bring it in line with international best practices.
Beyond collaborating with other African countries, what role will collaboration amongst these agencies in Nigeria do to help, stir this?
Yeah, I said earlier that the Ministry of Fisheries is in charge of fisheries. That's the position as it is now. But the Ministry of Blue Economy can liaise and collaborate with the Ministry of Fisheries. There has to be a blueprint. There has to be like a kind of high level meeting to collaborate and be like, okay, this is the problem. How do we make sure that we're really, really getting all that we can get from these resources, the ocean resources? So that has to be done. And then, because it's mandatory for us to sustain, and conserve our resources, because the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 14, I mean, that's what it says: sustainable development of the ocean resources of the state. So we just need to do this. So the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy and the Ministry of Fisheries, they need to have a blueprint, a sit down. I mean, no ego, no, just like, honestly, we want to do this for the country.
Because you must drive this.
There's no point having all this
Resources.
vast coastline. And then, because, I mean, I'm not a doomsayer, but what if oil dries up? We need to be able to...
But that is the projection.
Yes, for diversification.
Yes.
We need
Because
to
we
move away
must
from
move
oil.
away, yes.
We just have to. We can't just depend on oil.
So what role will IUU play?
Curbing the IUU menace.
Menace.
Yes.
Play to ensure that we get the resources we have for economic diversification.
By the time we put our house in order and we really go after, we might not be able to eliminate this illegal fishing, but at least reduce it to the barest minimum.
How come they are able to sell these fishes without being caught?
That's why all these international treaties are being put in place. There will be a way to kind of like, maybe there will be certification. Okay, you caught this fish, you did it in a sustainable way, and you got it from this place. So by the time you want to land the fish, like the treaty, the port state measures, you're bringing it to our port, and we're like, where did you get this fish from? Questions will be asked, forms will be filled. So by the time it's been suspected that, no, this was got illegally, then, by the time they're being blacklisted, and word goes out that, oh, wow, these port states are being really serious. And then the flag states also have a responsibility to ensure that the fishing vessels flying their flags, do not engage in all these IUU activities. So it's a multi-dimensional approach to curbing this issue, and to make sure that the economic benefits, it accrues to Nigeria, so that our goal of diversifying the economy and moving away from oil is achieved.
That's good, because if they involved in this illegal fishing and they don't have where to sell it, you know, of course
That is a kind of a deterrent, because
yes,
it's like,
yes.
oh, we know this is stolen fish. I'm not buying it. So invariably, you know,
So why involve in
that
what you
would
cannot even?
exactly. So that would be that would serve as a kind of a deterrence to those who are involved in this illegal activity.
So one of the ways to really curb this IUU fishing is enforcement, is laws. So do you think Nigerians' extant laws are adequate to tackle this menace of IUU fishing?
No, like I said, at the moment, the extant law in Nigeria that governs fisheries and fishing activities is the Sea Fisheries Act of 1992 and the regulations that were made pursuant to that act. But it is obsolete. For instance, if you engage in fishing without being licensed, duly licensed or registered, fine. You go to, well, not you. The suspect, when convicted, will pay a fine, a token, 50,000 naira, and maybe a term of imprisonment of about 2 years. That is not enough deterrence. But because the international body, on a global scale, the menace of IUU fishing is becoming so rampant, and there is the need to curb it. So there is a lot that can be done. So our laws have to be brought up to speed with international best practices. So we need, just like we had the SPOMO Act for piracy, we need to do something. We need to rejig the law and bring the extant law, the Sea Fisheries Act 1992, up to speed with best global practices.
Okay, that's one of the things the minister should be looking at.
Definitely,
Yes, if he must
definitely,
drive.
definitely. We need to bring our laws up to speed. We just have to.
I would have asked what role technology will play in all this, but unfortunately we are out of time. It's been Oluseyi Adejuyigbe. She is a maritime lawyer and a managing partner, Chaniel legal practitioner. Thank you very much for your thoughts and your time on the show.
Thank
I
you for
really
having
learned a
me.
lot.
Thank you for having me.
And that's our show this week. I hope you learned something about the illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing in Nigeria. Join us every week on Maritime Radar as we explore potentials that will ensure the development of the maritime sector in Africa. You can also explore the latest in global and local maritime news plus industry insight right here. I'm Nneoma Obi-Asualo. Many thanks for your time and see you again next week.